Published in 1970, The Bluest Eye is Toni Morrison's powerful debut novel. Set in Lorain, Ohio, in the aftermath of the Great Depression, the novel tells the tragic story of Pecola Breedlove, a young black girl who longs for blue eyes, believing they will make her beautiful and loved. Morrison confronts racism, internalized oppression, and sexual violence with unflinching clarity. The novel is narrated by Claudia MacDear, a young girl in Pecola's neighborhood, whose observations contrast Pecola's tragic descent. Through a fractured narrative and multiple perspectives, Morrison critiques the damaging impact of Eurocentric beauty standards and the intergenerational transmission of trauma in Black communities. Narrative structure and style. The novel is non-linear, divided into 4 seasonal sections: autumn, winter, spring, summer, ironically suggesting the cyclical nature of life, but subverted by the destructive events that unfold. Morrison intersperses the narrative with a parody of the white children's primer, e.g., See Jane Run, exposing how white middle-class norms marginalize Black identities. Narration alternates between first-person, Claudia, and third-person Omniscient, allowing Morrison to give voice to both internal consciousness and societal commentary. Plot summary by season. Autumn. Introducing Pecola's world. Summary. The novel opens with Claudia MacDear's narration. Claudia and her sister Frida live in a relatively stable Black family. Their parents take in Pecola Breedlove, whose father Charlie has just burned down their home. Pecola is shy, timid, and already consumed by a desire for blue eyes. The girls discuss menstruation and beauty, revealing their confusion about womanhood and desirability. Pecola believes that blue eyes will make her visible and loved. Analysis. Autumn begins the emotional and psychological landscape of the novel. Pecola's belief that blue eyes will save her shows how racist beauty ideals have colonized her self-image. Claudia, by contrast, resists these ideals, tearing apart white dolls, confused about why they're seen as beautiful. Morrison also introduces the theme of Black girlhood under social neglect, hinting at the traumas to come. Winter. Cultural myths and broken families. Summary. Pecola becomes increasingly isolated. She interacts with Maureen Peel, a light-skinned girl who is favored by adults and children alike. Maureen flatters Pecola but also insults her for her ugliness. Pecola believes her eyes, too big and brown, are the source of her misfortune. Claudia and Frida grow frustrated with society's preference for whiteness. Meanwhile, Morrison explores Pecola's home life, introducing Charlie and Pauline Breedlove's pasts. Pauline once dreamed of movie-like romance but now works for a white family and treats them with more tenderness than her own. Analysis. Winter exposes the hierarchies within Black communities, where proximity to whiteness, lighter skin, straighter hair, grants social favor. Maureen represents internalized racism dressed in charm. Pecola's pain intensifies. Through Pauline's backstory, Morrison critiques how media and systemic racism distort self-worth, especially for Black women. Pauline identifies with white cinematic beauty, transferring her dissatisfaction to Pecola. Spring. Breaking points and trauma. Summary. This section presents the most disturbing events of the novel. Pecola's father Charlie rapes her, a second assault after an earlier episode hinted at molestation. Morrison gives Charlie's backstory, his traumatic childhood, sexual humiliation by white men, and abandonment. Instead of justice or support, Pecola is blamed and dismissed. Her pregnancy becomes the town's scandal, while her psychological breakdown begins. She becomes increasingly obsessed with blue eyes. Analysis. Spring, typically a symbol of rebirth, becomes a time of trauma and destruction. Morrison does not excuse Charlie but contextualizes his actions within generational cycles of violence and emasculation. This challenges readers to understand how racism creates monsters without absolving them. Piccola's rape is a pivotal moment. It silences her completely and deepens her delusional yearning for transformation through beauty. Summer, fragmentation and madness. Summary: Piccola's baby dies. The community shuns her. She descends into madness, believing she has finally obtained the bluest eyes in the world. She speaks to an imagined version of herself who validates this belief. Claudia reflects on the town's role in destroying Piccola, admitting that everyone took some relief in believing in her ugliness, using her to define their own worth. Analysis: Summer closes the novel not with growth but with total collapse. Piccola's imagined blue eyes are not liberation but hallucination and exile. Her final conversation with herself reveals her complete detachment from reality. Claudia's reflective voice introduces collective guilt, how communities internalize and reproduce oppression, failing to protect the most vulnerable. Morrison's final note is mournful, not redemptive. Character analysis: Piccola Breedlove. Piccola is the tragic center of the novel. Quiet, passive, and yearning for love, she internalizes society's rejection. She becomes a symbol of how racial self-hatred manifests in the most powerless. Her desire for blue eyes is not vanity. It is a desperate plea to be seen, valued, and spared from cruelty. Morrison renders her not as a victim of fate but of systemic racism, patriarchy, and social neglect. Claudia MacTeer. As narrator, Claudia offers a critical, resistant perspective. Unlike Piccola, she refuses to idolize whiteness and questions the beauty norms imposed on her. Her voice matures by the novel's end, recognizing the complicity of silence and the communal failure to protect Piccola. Claudia represents hope and critical consciousness. Charlie Breedlove. Charlie is one of Morrison's most complex creations. His actions are horrific, but his past is filled with abandonment, racial emasculation, and pain. He is both product and perpetrator of trauma, embodying the twisted legacy of slavery and racism. Morrison does not excuse him but forces readers to grapple with the human cost of systemic dehumanization. Pauline, Polly, Breedlove. Pauline is Piccola's mother, who has internalized white beauty standards and lost herself in a fantasy world of domestic servitude. She shows more tenderness to her white employer's daughter than to Piccola, replicating self-hate in misdirected affection. Her story reflects gendered trauma and the erasure of black female identity. Maureen Peel, Soaphead Church, and others. Maureen Peel. A wealthy, light-skinned girl who exudes superiority and reveals the preference for acceptable blackness. Soaphead Church. A pedophile who claims to be holy. Piccola asks him for blue eyes, and he pretends to grant her wish. He represents spiritual decay, fraudulence, and exploitation. Major themes. 1. Beauty and its destructive ideals. The novel's central theme is the corrosive power of Eurocentric beauty standards. Piccola believes blue eyes will make her lovable, revealing how black girls are socialized to hate their features. It had occurred to Piccola some time ago that if her eyes, those eyes that held the pictures, and knew the sights, if those eyes of hers were different, that is to say, beautiful, she herself would be different. The idea that beauty is white, blonde, blue-eyed is dismantled through Morrison's exploration of how self-worth is shaped by media, community, and family. 2. Racism and internalized oppression. The novel reveals how racism operates subtly and internally. Black characters project their frustrations onto each other, often targeting the most vulnerable. Piccola becomes the scapegoat through whom others validate their own identity. This theme critiques not just institutional racism, but the psychic violence of cultural conditioning. 3. Sexual violence and silence. Morrison confronts the taboo of incest and child rape not for shock, but to illustrate the real consequences of neglect and social breakdown. Charlie's violation of Piccola is layered in pain, his own and hers, but it's Piccola who is blamed and erased. The town's refusal to speak or act is part of the trauma. 4. Family and fragmentation. Every family in the novel is fractured. The breedloves are dislocated from love. Pauline dreams of white beauty, Charlie is absent, and Piccola is emotionally orphaned. Even the seemingly stable MCQS are shown under economic and social pressure, yet they resist collapse through affection and resistance. 5. Childhood and disillusionment. The novel's use of children's perspectives makes its revelations more poignant. Claudia and Frida slowly learn that the world is unfair, that adults are fallible, and that beauty is racialized. The loss of innocence, especially Piccola's, reveals the harsh initiation into adulthood for black girls in a racist society. Symbolism. 1. Blue eyes. Blue eyes symbolize idealized beauty and love, but also alienation. Piccola's desire for blue eyes reflects her desire for power, visibility, and acceptance. Ironically, when she believes she has them, she is fully separated from reality, showing how false ideals destroy identity. 2. Shirley Temple and white dolls. Claudia's hatred of Shirley Temple and white dolls critiques how media indoctrinates black girls to adore whiteness. Dolls become symbols of cultural violence, not innocent playthings. 3. Marigolds. The motif of marigolds not blooming symbolizes how hope and innocence die in Piccola's world. Claudia's belief that flowers would have bloomed if someone had cared for Piccola reflects her futile wish to change what happened. 4. Seasons. The novel's seasonal structure is ironically inverted. Autumn. Decay begins. Winter. Emotional coldness. Spring. Trauma. Summer. Madness, not maturity. This subversion reflects how trauma warps natural cycles. Morrison's literary style. 1. Non-linear narrative. Morrison uses a fragmented timeline to mimic how trauma is non-sequential and often repressed. Readers piece together meaning as survivors piece together memory. 2. Shifting perspectives. By blending Claudia's narration with third-person accounts, Morrison provides both subjective and communal viewpoints. This technique invites empathy while offering broader critique. 3. Poetic and symbolic language. Morrison's language is lyrical, elusive, and richly metaphorical. Her prose blurs realism with allegory, grounding pain in mythic and emotional resonance. 4. Social and psychological realism. Morrison integrates psychological insight and sociological critique, showing how individual suffering is rooted in historical and structural forces. Conclusion. The Bluest Eye is a devastating, beautiful novel about a world that fails to see, nurture, or protect a vulnerable black girl. Through Piccola Breedlove, Toni Morrison explores how racism, beauty myths, and social silence deform the self. Morrison challenges us not just to pity Piccola, but to question the systems and ideologies that destroy her. The novel does not offer catharsis, but compels reflection on how we value lives, how we define beauty, and how we remember those whom society forgets. Love is never any better than the lover. In this one line, Morrison delivers the tragic truth: a loveless world breeds self-hate. But in Claudia's voice, and in Morrison's storytelling, we find the seeds of resistance, a refusal to let silence win.